The blue light from the holographic display cast strange shadows across Admiral Lee Sung's tired face. He had been staring at the same reports for hours, but the numbers never got easier to read. 50 years. 50 long years since the galaxy had thrown humanity out like unwanted garbage. "Admiral, we have a message coming in," said Lieutenant Parkman from her control station. Her young fingers moved quickly across the glowing buttons and screens. She was born after the exile, so she had never known what it felt like to be welcomed in the galaxy. All she knew was this prison they called home. Commander Kim Tae looked up from his weapons console. "Probably just another coalition ship checking on us. They have been doing that a lot lately. Maybe they are getting worried we might break out, Admiral." Sung made a bitter sound. The coalition. Those three alien races that had decided humanity was too mean, too violent to fight alongside them anymore. The Etherians, with their crystal bodies and mind-reading powers, had started it all. They said humans were savages. The smart Zephyrians had agreed, using their computers and math to prove humanity was dangerous. And the proud Krillians, who cared so much about honor, had cast the final vote that locked humanity away. "I still remember the Arcturus campaign," Sung whispered to himself. He had been just a young captain then, watching the coalition armies get beaten badly by their enemies. It was human soldiers and human tactics that had saved the day. They had rescued millions of alien lives. But when the coalition leaders heard about how humans had won the battle, they were not grateful. They were horrified. "Sir, this message is not from the coalition," Parkman said suddenly. Her voice sounded worried. "It is coming from our deep space stations. They're picking up strange signals from the empty space between galaxies." Sung turned to look at her. "What kind of strange signals? We do not know, sir." "But the computer says these signals look like something from the old files. The secret ones that were locked away before the coalition was even formed." Kim Tae's face went white. "You mean the Devourer files? Those are just old stories," Parkman said quickly. "Right? Just scary tales to frighten children?" Admiral Sung stood up slowly. His old bones creaked and complained. He had been a soldier for too many years, fought too many battles. "Lieutenant, connect me to Earth Command. Use the emergency channel." As the communication system buzzed to life, Sung looked out the window at the energy wall that surrounded human space. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. 450 years it had kept humanity locked away from the rest of the galaxy. Beyond that shimmering barrier were billions of aliens who had decided they were better off without humans. But those aliens had also forgotten something important. They had forgotten the old warnings. They had forgotten about the things that lived in the dark spaces between the stars. Things that were much worse than humans could ever be. "Earth Command, this is Admiral Sung," he said into the microphone. "We need to open all the old files. Every single one." The voice that answered him was deep and serious. It belonged to General Han So, a woman who had been fighting for humanity since before the exile. "Admiral, are you sure about this? Once we open those files, there is no going back." Admiral Sung looked at his young officers. Parkman was staring at her screens with growing fear. Kim Tae was already pulling up weapon systems that had not been used in decades. They were good soldiers, but they had never faced a real enemy. The coalition had made sure of that by keeping humanity locked away. "General, the galaxy threw us out because they said we were too violent," Sung said. "They said we were monsters who could not be trusted. They wanted to forget about us and pretend we never existed." He paused, watching the energy barrier flicker and pulse. Somewhere beyond it, alien civilizations were living their peaceful lives. They had their polite wars with rules and honor. They had their diplomatic solutions and their careful negotiations. They thought they had evolved beyond the need for human brutality. But they also forgot why they needed us in the first place, Sung continued. "There are things out there in the dark that do not care about honor or diplomacy, things that do not follow rules or make deals. And if those things are waking up, ... Double quotes. General Hanso was quiet for a long moment. I am activating the deep archives now. All files are being unlocked." Admiral soon nodded and closed the communication channel. He looked at his officers again. They were about to learn secrets that had been hidden for generations. They were about to discover why humanity had been both feared and needed by the galaxy. Sir Parkman said quietly, "What happens if you are right? What happens if the old enemies are coming back?" Admiral Sung smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Then the galaxy will remember why they were afraid of us. And maybe, just maybe, they will remember why they needed us too." The holographic display flickered again, showing new data streaming in from the deep space stations. The signals were getting stronger. The Great Hall of the Galactic Coalition buzzed with the sounds of 1,000 different alien voices. It was like a symphony of chirps, clicks, musical tones, and electronic beeps, all mixed together. Yunhei sat in the corner section marked for humans, watching but not allowed to speak or vote. She was a reminder of humanity's shame, sitting there like a child who had been punished. "These problems on the outer edges of space are nothing to worry about," said the Etherian speaker. His body was made of living crystal that glowed with blue light when it felt confident. "We always have small troubles when we expand to new areas. This is normal." Across the galaxy, Commander Ojin watched the meeting on his screen from the Coalition's military command center. He was one of the few humans still allowed to work with the alien governments, though they always watched him carefully. 430 years he had tried to build trust with species that thought humans were dangerous animals. Now, as he listened to them ignore the warnings from deep space, he felt angry and helpless. Sir Lieutenant Name Su whispered next to him. Name Su was also human, also in exile trying to prove his people were not monsters. The Kepler station stopped sending messages. "That makes 3 stations this week." Ojin felt his heart skip a dull beat. This was exactly what the old human files had warned about. "Did you check this against the Devourer information?" The Coalition locked those files away 20 years ago. They said it was just human fear and paranoia. Cannot read them anymore. On the big screen in the council chamber, a Zephyrian military expert was showing charts and numbers. The Zephyrians loved math and computers, so they thought everything could be solved with the right calculations. "The chance of real enemy contact is only 0.3%, the expert said. "We should send a diplomatic message first. If that does not work, we can try economic pressure." Ambassador Yunhei stood up in her corner. Her voice was clear and strong, cutting through all the alien chatter. "Honored members of the Council, humanity has information about these problems. We formally ask permission to share our data." The Krillian war leader immediately spoke up. His shell-like body was covered in scars from battles, marks of honor in his culture. "Humans are exiled for good reasons. They cannot give military advice. This rule protects the galaxy from their violent ways." Dr. Bei Young sat in the science section, growing more worried by the minute. She was the head of alien archaeology, studying the remains of dead civilizations. Her research had found pieces of ancient warnings, old stories about something that ate entire worlds. The similarities to what was happening now were impossible to ignore. "You must at least look at their information," she said to her Etherian boss. "The pattern matches records from civilizations that went extinct long ago." "Humans think about everything in violent terms," her supervisor replied. "Their brutal nature affects how they see problems. We cannot let their savage thinking contaminate our peaceful methods." Ojin watched the council session end with the usual alien bureaucracy. Nothing decided, nothing done, just more meetings, scheduled for later. He quickly sent a secret message to the human quarantine zone using codes that only other humans would understand. The reply came back in just a few hours.
Well,
It was signed by Admiral Sung himself. "Devourer protocols activated. May the galaxy forgive its arrogance." Ojin stared at the message for a long time. The Devourer protocols were humanity's most secret plans, locked away in the deepest archives. They were strategies so dark and terrible that even humans hoped they would never be needed. If Admiral Sung was activating them, it meant the old nightmare was coming true. Dr. Bei Young worked late in her laboratory that night, comparing ancient texts with current reports. The dead civilizations had left warnings carved in stone, burned into metal, recorded in crystals that lasted millions of years. They all told the same story. Something came from the dark between galaxies, something that consumed everything in its path. We ignored them too, she whispered to herself, reading about a race called the Eternals who had been the greatest civilization in the galaxy before they vanished. They tried to warn others, but no one listened, just like we are not listening to the humans now. Lieutenant Namsu was monitoring deep space communications when the alerts started coming in. Like first 1, then 2, then 3 star systems simply stopped broadcasting. No distress calls, no battle reports, no final messages. They were just gone. Commander Ojin, he called out. You need to see this. Ojin looked at the star map. 3 red dots marked systems that had gone silent. They formed a pattern, a line pointing toward the populated areas of the galaxy. It was exactly what the human archives had predicted would happen if the Devourers ever returned. How long before they reached the core worlds? Ojin asked. Namsu ran the calculations. At this rate, 6 months, maybe less. That night, as the alien council members slept peacefully in their beds, 3 more star systems went dark. The ancient enemy was stirring, and the galaxy had forgotten how to fight. Only the exiled humans remembered, and no one wanted to listen to them. The crystal halls of the coalition remained bright and beautiful. But darkness was spreading across the stars. The great council hall was in complete chaos. Alien voices screamed and wailed in panic as the holographic star maps showed system after system going dark. Captain Li Wan stood straight and tall in front of the assembly, one of the last humans still allowed to work with the coalition government. 17 star systems are gone, he reported in a calm voice, even though his heart was breaking. Survivors found no wreckage, no debris, just empty space where millions of people used to live. The chamber exploded with terrified sounds. The crystal Etherians flashed angry red lights, their bodies pulsing with fear. The computer-loving frantically calculated numbers that made no sense. The proud Krillian warriors shook with rage, their scarred shells clicking loudly. This cannot be happening naturally, declared the Etherian prime speaker, its voice high with panic. Someone must have a terrible new weapon. It is not a weapon, interrupted Dr. Bei Young as she pushed her way into the chamber without permission. It is a living species, the Devourers. They are mentioned in ancient records and in humanity's secret files. Admiral Choi Bin watched everything from the military command center. He was the highest-ranking human still serving with the coalition forces. For years, he had been secretly talking to Earth Command, sharing information both ways. Learned made him very afraid. The humans have been getting ready for this, he told the coalition military leaders. During their exile, they were not sitting around feeling sorry for themselves. They were building weapons to fight enemies that we chose to forget about. That is impossible, laughed the Zephyrian fleet commander. Our computer models show that our current military methods are the best possible. The holographic displays suddenly updated with new horrible numbers. 53 star systems had vanished in just 3 days. The darkness was spreading faster, now eating entire sectors of space. Captain Park Da stepped forward. She had been stationed on the outer edges of Coalition space for 20 years, watching humanity's quarantine zone from afar. What she had seen there frightened her. Sirs, I have observed their preparations. They are not building weapons to conquer territory. They are building weapons to completely destroy enemies. How barbaric, whispered the Etherian prime speaker. Necessary, corrected Dr. Bei Young. Against an enemy that shows no mercy, follows no rules, and wants only to consume everything living. The chamber became very quiet as another message arrived. The Devourers had reached the middle areas of the galaxy. Coalition fleets that had tried to fight them had simply disappeared. No battle reports, no final radio calls, no last messages, just silence. Admiral Choi Ben had been talking to his human contacts all week. The conversations were getting more desperate each day. Admiral Sung says the Devourers are moving faster than predicted, he reported. They are not just destroying planets. They are consuming the very fabric of space itself. The Zephyrian scientists pulled up more data. Our battle fleets reported contact with unknown entities. Then all communication stopped. We sent rescue ships. They also vanished. Dr. Bae-young had been studying the ancient records for days without sleep. The extinct civilizations left warnings. They said the devourers appear every few million years. They consume galaxies and then sleep until the next feeding time. But why now? Asked the Krillian war leader. What woke them up? Life, Dr. Bae-young replied simply. Too much life in one place. The galaxy has more populated worlds now than ever before. We are like a bright light in the darkness, calling them to come feed. Captain Li Wan had been receiving updates from the human quarantine zone. Earth Command says the Devourers are not just random destroyers. They are intelligent. They have strategies. They coordinate their attacks. Then how? Do we fight them? The Etherean Prime Speaker asked desperately. We do not, Admiral Choi Bin said quietly. We cannot. Our civilized methods, our honor codes, our diplomatic solutions, none of it matters to creatures that only want to consume.
Ow.
The chamber fell silent again. Everyone was thinking the same terrible thought, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Captain? Parkta finally spoke the words everyone was afraid to hear. We need the humans. We need their violence. We need their brutal methods. The word violence hung in the air like poison. For 50 years, the Coalition had called humanity to savage for civilized warfare. They had exiled humans for being too brutal, too willing to do horrible things to win battles. They have been preparing for this enemy while we forgot it existed, Admiral Choi Bin continued. They know how to fight creatures that follow no rules. The Zephyrian fleet commander was still looking at his calculations. The mathematical probability of our survival without external assistance is approaching zero. We exiled them. The Krillian war leader said bitterly, we called them monsters. Why would they help us now? Dr. Bae-young looked at the star map, watching more systems go dark in real time. Because if the galaxy dies, humanity dies with it. And because despite everything we did to them, they are still human. They will not let everyone die just to prove a point. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then the Etherean Prime Speaker spoke in a voice filled with shame and fear. Send a message to the human quarantine zone. Tell them the galaxy needs their help. The Coalition ship shook and rattled as it passed through the energy wall that had kept humanity locked away for 50 years. Ambassador Yunhei pressed her face against the window, watching as the barrier opened like a giant door. What she saw on the other side made her gasp. By all the ancient spirits, whispered the Etherean Prime Speaker, its crystal body flashing with shocked silver light. What have they built out here? Space around Earth was filled with enormous weapons platforms and battle stations. They were unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen. Dark, angular, and covered with guns that looked like they could destroy planets. Admiral Sung's flagship, the Indomitable, was so massive it made their diplomatic ship look like a toy. Welcome to what 50 years of exile creates, said General Han So as she met the delegation at the airlock. Her uniform was completely black, with no Coalition symbols anywhere. Instead, it bore the stark white emblem of humanity's Independent Defense Command. You have 10 minutes to explain why you are here, the Krillian war leader's shell-covered body clicked nervously. Even though he was a proud warrior with many battle scars, he seemed small and afraid in this place. The galaxy is dying. We need your help, or violent savage help. Captain Kim Tae's voice was filled with 50 years of bitter anger. The same help you said was too brutal and disgusting for civilized people. Dr. Bae-young stepped forward, no longer caring about her Coalition rank or position. The threat of total extinction had made such things meaningless. You were wrong. The old records you tried to share with us, the warnings we refused to listen to, they were all true. The Devourers have come back. Admiral Sung entered the conference room, and immediately everyone felt his presence. Behind him walked Colonel Park Soo, the head of humanity's Strategic Warfare Division. They carried thick folders full of documents and plans that had been worked on for decades. We already know, Sung said simply. We have been watching their approach since the first strange signals from deep space. Our calculations show they will consume the entire galaxy within 18 months, Then, you will help us? The Etherean Prime Speaker's voice was filled with desperate hope. On our terms only, General Hanso replied firmly. Complete control of all military operations. No interference in our methods. No oversight of our tactics. The alien delegation looked at each other nervously. The Zephyrian representative spoke. First, his electronic voice hesitant. Some of your methods might break coalition warfare rules. Your rules are exactly why you are losing, interrupted Colonel Park Sue. The Devourers do not follow rules. They do not make deals. They do not negotiate. They only consume. To fight them requires methods your civilization has chosen to forget. Captain Li Wan, who was there as a coalition observer, studied the tactical displays on the walls. Show him the battle plans, Admiral. The holographic projections that appeared were terrifying. Human fleets engaged in tactics that looked like suicide missions. Strategies that sacrificed entire planets to trap and kill devourer swarms. The coalition delegates watched in complete silence, their faces showing horror and disgust. This is exactly why you exiled us, Admiral Sung said quietly. Not because we enjoyed violence, but because we understood that some enemies can only be defeated through absolute measures. The Etherean Prime Speaker's crystal body became almost invisible, dimming with fear. The galaxy will see terrible. Things the galaxy will survive, General Han so corrected. That is all that matters. Dr. Bae-young looked at the battle plans, seeing strategies that involved destroying entire star systems to create traps. How many will die in these operations? Fewer than will die if we do nothing, Colonel Park Sue answered. The have already consumed 60 star systems. Billions are already dead. Can save the rest, but only if we act without hesitation. The Krillian war leader studied a projection showing human ships deliberately flying into devourer swarms, carrying weapons that would destroy both the enemy and themselves. This goes against every concept of honorable warfare. Honor is a luxury that dead civilizations cannot afford, Admiral Sung replied. You can keep your honor, or you can keep your lives. I cannot have both.
Nice.
The Zephyrian representative was calculating probabilities on his portable computer. The mathematical models show that conventional coalition tactics have a 0.02% chance of success against the Devourers. These human methods increase survival probability to 73.6%. At what cost? The Etherean Prime Speaker asked weakly. At the cost of your innocence, General Hanso said. You will see us do things that will haunt your dreams. It will watch us. Make choices that will horrify you. But you will live to have those dreams and feel that horror. The delegation was quiet for a long time. Finally, Dr. Bae-young spoke for all of them. We accept your terms. Complete operational control. No interference. The vote was unanimous, but everyone in the room understood what it meant. The coalition would learn why they had feared humanity's methods. They would discover that sometimes the only way to defeat monsters was to become something even more frightening. As the meeting ended, Admiral Sung looked out at the stars where the Devourers were spreading their darkness. Prepare the fleets, he ordered. It is time to remind the galaxy why they needed us. The battle for the Altair system would be remembered forever. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Indomitable, watching as human fleets fought the Devourer swarms using tactics that made the alien observers sick to their stomachs. Phoenix Protocol is now active, reported Captain Kim Tae from his weapons station. Bait ships are in position and ready, Lieutenant Parkman worked at her controls with cold precision. All civilians have been evacuated. Scorched Earth plan is approved and ready to begin. The coalition observers watched in complete horror as human ships deliberately flew into the Devourer swarms. Letting themselves be consumed, the crews died. On purpose, but their ships carried special viral weapons that would poison the Devourers from the inside. Other human vessels used gravity weapons to make stars collapse, turning entire solar systems into massive death traps. This is terrible and barbaric, whispered the Etherean military officer. So many people are dying. Thousands are dying. Instead of billions, interrupted Colonel Park Sue. Your civilized way of fighting lost 60 star systems. We have saved 600. Commander Ojin was now working as a bridge between human and coalition forces. His reports to Coalition Command were short and businesslike. Devourer fleet destroyed. Our casualties, minimal. Method, acceptable losses to achieve mission success. Psychological warfare was perhaps even more disturbing than the physical battles. Dr. Bay. Young watched as human specialists broadcast special signals that drove the Devourer swarms crazy, making them attack each other instead of their targets. The enemy that had seemed impossible to stop began to fall apart under tactics designed to exploit their hive mind weaknesses. "How did you know this would work?" she asked General Han. So during a brief break in the fighting, because we listened. "To the warnings your civilization chose to ignore," came the reply. "The ancient records told us about this enemy. Be prepared for what you hoped would never happen." The final battle took place in the Vega sector, where the largest Devourer force had gathered. Human fleets used what they called the Prometheus Gambit, a strategy so ruthless that Coalition Command at first refused to allow it. "We will sacrifice one star system to save the entire galaxy," Admiral Sung explained to the assembled Coalition leadership. "The Devourers will consume the bait planet, but the trap will eliminate their entire species forever." The Krillian war leader's scarred shell reflected his internal struggle. "This goes against every principle of honorable warfare that we believe in. Honor is a luxury that dead people cannot afford," replied Captain Li Wan. The operation worked. The Devourer threat was completely eliminated, but at a cost that would forever change how the galaxy thought about warfare. Human casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands, all volunteers who had chosen to be part of strategies that required absolute sacrifice. Dr. Bei Young studied the final battle reports with amazement and horror. They used an entire planet as bait. Billions of Devourers consumed it, but the planet was actually a massive bomb. When it exploded, it created a chain reaction that destroyed the entire Devourer fleet. "And the human volunteers on that planet?" asked the Etherean Prime Speaker. "They stayed until the end, making sure the trap worked perfectly," Commander Ojin replied quietly. "They knew they would die, but they did it anyway." As the fleets returned to their home worlds, the galaxy struggled to understand what they had witnessed. Humanity had saved them all, but the methods used had revealed exactly why they had been feared in the first place. The Coalition leaders gathered one final time to hear Admiral Sung's address. "We are not monsters," he said to the reformed Galactic Coalition. "We are what monsters fear. That is why you needed us, and why you will always need us." The Etherean Prime Speaker's crystal body pulsed with shame and gratitude. "We exiled you because we thought you were too violent. We did not understand that some enemies can only be defeated through violence. You exiled us because you forgot that the universe is not a safe place," Admiral Sung replied. "You built a civilization based on honor, diplomacy, and rules. That is beautiful, but it only works when everyone follows the same rules." The Zephyrian representative looked at his calculations. The mathematical probability of galactic survival without human intervention was 0.0003%. With human methods, survival probability was 99.7%. "At what cost?" the Krillian war leader asked. "At the cost of your innocence," General Han So answered. "You can no longer pretend that the universe is civilized. You know now that sometimes good people must do terrible things to protect what they love." The exile was permanently lifted, but humanity's role in the galaxy had forever changed. They were no longer outsiders looking in, but guardians standing watch against threats that civilization preferred to forget. Ambassador Yoon Hae sent her final report to Earth Command. "The galaxy is safe. The cost was everything we warned them. It would be." The Coalition rebuilt, but they never forgot the lesson. In their new military academies, they taught students about the balance between civilization and survival. They learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is to become something terrible to protect those you care about. Human ships now patrolled the dark spaces between galaxies, watching for threats that might return. They had become the galaxy's immune system, the antibodies that would fight off any infection that threatened the peaceful worlds within. The galaxy was safe, but it was no longer innocent.